Welcome to Taking Stock with Lisa Brown. I'm delighted to have a very special guest join me today. And when I first met her, I heard her say, people contact me when they are in a crisis. So that definitely got my attention. Dana Perry is a certified elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation, an elder care and estate planning attorney with Chambliss, Bahner Stophel, serving clients in Tennessee and Georgia. Dana is a graduate of Vanderbilt Law School and has been practicing in the area of elder care law for over 30 years, one of the longest of any lawyer in this field. Welcome, Dana.
Well, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Wonderful. Well, Dana, I'm going to pose a couple questions to you today about your expertise in this topic of how to get mom and dad prepared before they fall. The first question is, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about, what sort of crisis families are facing when they first contact you, or as you previously said, after someone falls.
Yeah, it's so sad many times, and families will call, and typically sometimes it's the spouse, more often than not it's the children, sometimes it's the grandchildren, and there's been a crisis has occurred that maybe the family just can't take it anymore in terms of dealing with the elder loved one situation, or there might have been a fall. So we talk about after somebody falls, literally many times my work is precipitated by a fall. Mom breaks her hip, she is not recovering well. And oh, by the way, those cognitive issues that we really had been sweeping under the rug, we cannot ignore them anymore. Dad says he just can't take it anymore. And so typically it's that type of care crisis. I would also say that so often what's so sad in these crisis planning cases that I have is many times the loved ones have no idea about anything concerning typically the parents, or who they're coming to see me about, the parents' world financially, income-wise, whatever. So I'll ask, well, what are your parents drawing for their pension, Social Security? I don't know. Do they have long-term care insurance? I don't know. What kind of base of assets do we have? Is the house paid off? And, many instances, it's a forensic exercise to try to figure out what we've got to work with. And it's just so hard on the family. They're trying to get mom placed in a good care setting. They're trying to figure out how much money is there to take care of her and navigate issues among siblings, let's say, and then to kind of throw on that, just having to ascertain assets and organize things, it is so hard. So many times people will literally bring a big file folder. They'll just see that on mom or dad's desk, there appears to be this whole stack of stuff. And a lot of times it's disorganized. They'll just scoop it up and bring it all in, and we'll spend the better part of an afternoon trying to go through it and figure out what in the heck is going on. And that is just so hard on the family.
And I think you're spot on there that, money can be a very difficult topic to talk about among family members. It can be a very private topic, and people are just not comfortable approaching their parents or elderly family members about that topic. But, outside of not having that conversation or awareness of where to go to get this information in the event of an emergency, you're right that it takes hours and hours of time, not only for the professional advisors, but the family members to figure out what's going on. And it's harder for us as advisors to come up with a great plan of action if we don't really know, all the financial data we're working with. So I think that's a great point to, try to address those issues, the financial issues, before someone falls. And on that same note, I've recently heard you share some comments about how important it is to simplify things for elderly family members. Can you share with us what areas in someone's life should be simplified as they age?
Okay, so this is a good idea to talk to you about, okay, well, what's the contrast for kind of the disaster area crisis planning? So we're trying to help families before the fall occurs. And one of those things is simplifying. And so in terms of first simplifying, if you're an older person listening to this podcast, or if you're a loved one, your loved one is older, you're trying to help them think through that, well, organizing your finances to where there's a central place to go. We know how much income there is. We know where the long-term care policy is. We know if there's not one. We have a central repository for that. I know in my planning for clients, I use, it's not the fanciest thing in the world. We just build a workbook on the computer program Excel and list everything. And then we build on that. And so that aspect of just getting things together, that simplifies because it's not just this quagmire of unknowing. The next area of simplifying is, so often what I will find is that elders will have financial resources in a bunch of different places. Maybe they were chasing a slightly higher rate of interest, 2 decades ago at the credit union north of town or the bank north of town or the whatever. And, there's still money parked there, but are a financial advisor that they haven't seen in 10 years. And, oh, by the way, that person retired and now they've been assigned to somebody else. So it's quite common to see these little, these not major money accounts that have not been consolidated. And so I generally tell people that, it's just going to be so much easier managing the affairs for an elderly family member, or managing your own affairs, if you don't have an account with every, 5 different financial advisors and 5 different banks and credit unions. You're just going to be better off and probably get a more consistent investment strategy if you kind of simplify it down. Ideally, frankly, Lisa, what I like to see among elders I deal with is to have one bank and one financial advisor, and have the assets consolidated in that way. And then we go into talking about simplification. Okay, so that's financial simplification. Then we get into just physical environment. People put off dealing with their stuff. I'm talking about the rugs, the whatnots in the living room, the bedroom suit, the whatever. And they think that they're doing their kids a favor by waiting. They really ought to take time and go through that stuff. And there are professionals who can help people go through all that stuff. And there are numerous reasons why that's a good idea. First of all, if they're going to stay where they are, they're going to possibly trip over stuff. And so simplifying the physical environment can help make the physical environment safer for an elder. The other thing is that so often the elder, while the elder is present in working with their children, it is easier, and the elder gets gratification and just this good feeling about giving out different items, and or having the discussion. The children say, Mom, we each have a house full of furniture. We don't need this. And then the family works together on identifying items of meaning, but yet simplifying by getting rid of rooms of furniture that nobody in the family is going to want. You're not doing your family a favor by putting off that discussion. And then finally, the simplification, I think, extends to what type of home are you in? If you are preserving the home that the kids grew up in, and for a visit twice a year and all the kids live out of town or whatever, you're paying for a lot of house you're not using. And so often, there are steps to get in, and people have mobility issues. I'm going for, okay, on one floor, can you do the wash, wash the dishes, sleep, bathe, etc.? And are the doors easy to get in and out of? So often the answer to that is no. And so often, families will help the elder, and the elder will help themselves downsize into a smaller footprint, one level. A lot of times these places will have HOAs that handle the yard work. So still probably a single family home, but without a lot of the square footage and care costs. And that can be a really good step in simplifying. And I think there's kind of a puzzling sometimes unwillingness to consider that. And oftentimes, if you can get the parents together with the kids, the kids will be like, "Mom, please, get your, we're fine if you want to move into a smaller place. That's fine. How can we help?" And it just makes things so much easier. And everybody, Lisa, I meet with, they want to stay in a home environment as long as possible. And these simplification efforts, I think, can really help people achieve that end of staying in a truly home environment as long as they possibly can.
And it seems to me that depending on the age of the family members when they embark on the simplification process, they may need, a child or the children to step in and help with this process. So, do you have a good recommendation about what point the children should step in to help mom and dad? And, is there anything else the children should be helping their parents do to get their financial and legal affairs in order?
Well, it's really quite tricky because, mom and dad, in most instances, they want to maintain their autonomy as long as possible. So kind of waiting until late and then buzzing in and wanting to take over everything is oftentimes a recipe for problems. I tell people that you need to start earlier than you think you do, and you need to go slower than you would like possibly. So maybe you work with your parents, they talk, you have a goal and say, okay, each time I visit mom and dad, I'm going to bring this up and we're going to try to get something accomplished. So on this trip, hopefully they're going to share with me who their financial advisor is. And you can, maybe we're going to discuss end of life decisions, and just kind of gradually work on that. But the best processes in this regard, can and should take time. And I think by building that gradual time approach, typically the parents understand that the kids are, not trying to take everything over all at once. And then sometimes events get ahead of us and there is this health calamity and the kids then have to step in and do more. But that's the approach I often will recommend. Start early and go gradual.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. And you're right. It does take time, and it's much less stressful and much less of a crisis moment if you can start early and take your time to go through that process.
Yeah, if I could add, Lisa, what I find is that people get around to thinking about this process when they're in their frankly, late 70s and early 80s. And I think they need to be thinking about it when they're in their late 60s and early 70s. I think the decade of the 70s, especially ages 70 to 75, are years that a lot of planning can occur, that many times people, hey, we're healthy, we don't need to do anything. But, that is a time period where I think a lot of things can get done, and families can kind of get ahead of the game and do so in a non-threatening way, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and I think that same, time frame of the 70 to 75, I've also seen clients' health rapidly deteriorate. It almost seems like overnight during that age, span. And so, you're right. Doing it during that time or even before that time is really important, because you just don't know, when a fall could happen or when a health issue could pop up, and now you are in crisis mode. So.
Yeah, it's really a lottery, because, in my experience in legal practice, I see some seniors who win this lottery, and I have clients who are in their 90s. And, in fact, I went to lunch with one of my nonagenarian clients last week, and just doing swimmingly. And that's the model, everybody wants to be. But in reality, not everybody wins that lottery. And so in many families, one or both spouses in the decade of the 70s are going to have some severe issues, whether that be capacity issues, dementia issues, or physical infirmities that start to really be a factor.
And now, Dana, in your practice, you mentioned that you have a social worker on staff at your firm to help clients get into the right long-term care facility. Share with us why this service is so important, because I think it's a really unique aspect about your law practice.
Well, actually, thank you, Lisa. We've really enjoyed that process. So we have a licensed social worker in our practice, and that is based on other elder care practitioners. It actually is something that various elder care practitioners do. Not every elder care practitioner firm has a social worker as part of the team, but when I did. When I was getting ready to do this, I planned out, and actually a very gracious elder law practitioner in the Nashville area let me and Amy is the name of our social worker, come and shadow their practice for a couple of days. And it really gave us both the sense that, hey, we can do this. And so why it is so good is that, I'm a lawyer, and so I have a set of tools that I use as a lawyer for legal things. However, not every problem in an elder's life has a legal document or a legal strategy as a solution. So I like to say, just because I have a hammer doesn't mean everything's a nail, And so having a social worker on our staff is so good, because she brings a different set of priorities and thoughts. And so this issue of placement, she's much more on the ground than I am in terms of knowing all the intake people at the various facilities in our area, and, which ones she, frankly, as a fellow professional, recommends that people go into, and which one is having problems, and et cetera, and a host of other issues. Like, she will work with me in consulting with folks as they start to activate their long-term care policies, and many times that's kind of a dicey process. And sometimes there's not other professionals to help that occur, and so it's just really been a good process for us. Amy has been with us for about 5 years now, and it is very much enriched our practice, and both in the elder care and special needs planning areas. And in fact, so much so that when I'm looking for attorneys in other cities, when I have to refer, I'm looking for a firm that has a social worker, because I know how beneficial they can be.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great service. Well, I would like to thank Dana Perry for joining me today and sharing her wisdom on steps to take to avoid mom and dad falling and going in the crisis mode. If you'd like more information or to get in touch with Dana Perry, you can connect with her on LinkedIn or by visiting chamblisslaw.com. And that's spelled CHAMBLISS law.com. Dana can also be reached by calling 423-757-0228. Thank you so much for joining us today, and be well.